Welcome to another edition of Joe's Politics 101. Today is December the 10th, 2013, and I want to weigh in on a subject that's been browsing around for a while, with some years really, but it's done heated up again, and that's about the minimum wage. You know, you watch the news media, you read the newspaper, and they talk about the minimum wage, but they don't really break the minimum wage down and how it has flowed. You know, I was born in the 40s. I was born in 1946, giving my age away, but I don't have a problem with growing old, because I know we all have to get there at some point in time. Now, I can remember working, and this is prior to the minimum wage issue. This was in the 50s. I can remember having a job that paid 25 cents an hour in the 1950s now. You have to excuse me. I sort of have a little touch of the flu and feeling kind of bad with a little cough. But in the 1950s, when I first began to work as a teenager, the wages, there was no minimum wage. So the employer or whoever you worked for would set the price that he was going to pay you, or he or she was going to pay you per an hour. The first job I had, I made 25 cents per an hour. For an 8-hour day, that's $2. Most of the times I ended up with maybe $2.50 because I worked a little longer and the work was a little harder. As I grew older and things progressed and I become a better worker, I guess you could say, my wages went up to 50 cents an hour. And in 1960, I had a job that paid 75 cents an hour, and I found another job that paid $1 an hour. Okay. So by the time I joined the military, I was making $1.25 an hour working. When I joined the military, I made $67 a month. Now you divide that into 30 days, you know, you come up with a number. I can't do it in my head because I ain't got too old to remember numbers like that, but I'm going to do it on my little calculator here. So we got 67. And you divide that by 30. I was making $2.23 per day in the military. I stayed in the military for 21 years. When I retired from the military in 1985, I was making $1,400 a month. I was making $47 a month. I mean a week. That's what I was making. You know, it's not a lot of money. Well, I come back out into the civilian world, and I was checking to try to find a job, and the wages were, they varied depending on the employer, from $4.65 an hour, $4.50, $4.65, up to $5 or $6. Okay. Well, that was in 1985, and this is 2013, so we're talking what, 27 years, or 24 years, 25 years. And the wages have only made it to $7.20 an hour. $7.20 an hour. There's probably a lot of argument going on about the minimum wage and why people are against it and why people are for it. I think the people who are for it, reasoning and understanding of it, is a lot better than the reasoning and the understanding of it by the people who oppose it. Now, just take into consideration the people that's opposing it. The Republican House of Representatives, Republicans in the Senate, business people, corporations. When you look back and you think about how things were in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you can understand how a person could survive and make it on the low minimum wage that was back there. You have to take into consideration some of the things that were going on in the 50s, 60s, and 70s with the economy. Number one, the majority of the things that we purchased as American citizens were made right here in the United States of America. Our corporations were here in the United States of America. General Electric, RCA Victor. The majority of the clothing that we bought was made right here in America. It wasn't, the businesses and the manufacturing jobs that they had. And then you had industrial jobs that paid a bit more than the $5 an hour or the $4 an hour, $4.65 or whatever it was back then. They paid a little bit more, like maybe the auto workers, people that worked in steel factories, pouring pipe and making different items out of metal. But in the 1980s, one thing I can remember about Joaquin Valley in California during the 1970s is this company, Texas Instrument, become big in the Joaquin Valley area, I guess, out in California. And boy, there were people that were working at those factories making watches and different little electronic stuff. And they were making a good wage. I mean, they were happy with it. They were getting the hours that they needed to work. And they were happy. Back then, in the 60s and 70s, you could live on that because everything in America was made in America and the prices weren't that high. Gas was cheap. You could buy gas for 65, 75, 85 cents a gallon. Okay, in the 80s, on the onset of the 80s, and along around the time Ronald Reagan got in office, everything began to change. His idea of trickle-down economics. It probably sounded real good to him when he said it, because if in reality, and if you understand the way things work, the only thing that trickles down is water. Nothing that has anything that's going to obstruct it is going to trickle down. And if there is money involved in it, no one's going to release it like it can trickle down to the lower income people. Also, during this period of time, you began to see people outsourcing, finding people overseas to make items that were normally made in the United States of America. bring those back to the United States of America and sell them to the citizens of the United States at a elevated price. Okay, and that hence has gotten us to where we are now. You know, we talk about, you know, the workers at Walmart, Burger King, Wendy's, or any service-orientated job. People who work in the oil fields, they make decent money, because oil fields know and understand that they have to pay these people for the danger and the type of work and the physical portions of that work to retain them. So they pay them a slightly higher wage than what they pay service workers. Now, service workers, depending on what realm it is, if you're working in a restaurant as a waitress or a bartender or whatever, a lot of your income depends on your tips. I mean, $2 or $2.50 an hour as a waitress or bartender don't really pay the bills. You know, you got to depend on people being generous and handing you an extra $2 or $3 for to make your wage. This argument that they have that to increase the minimum wage is going to affect businesses. How can it affect businesses? You know, I saw an analogy on television the other day about somebody who went to McDonald's and bought a hamburger that was $6 and something. Okay? But I think he said something about he ordered it on a machine, on some type of, you know, internet correspondence with the restaurant. He ordered it and it was brought out by someone and gave to him. He said that because of that, if they raised the minimum wage, there would be fewer people getting jobs. Well, I don't believe that. And also, you know, if you would look and pay attention to McDonald's, Wendy's, Arby's, any fast food organization or convenience store, you know, the number of people that pass through these places on a day-to-day basis, you know, is tremendous. You know, you get 100 people at $6.70 or $7 a hamburger, you done made a mother load of money that day. Now, what your profit margins are, I don't know. Once you take out your expenses, I can't do that because I don't have a franchise or work at a McDonald's. Then you see where, or you hear and talk about how much a CEO of a corporation makes. Billions of dollars, millions of dollars a year. You know, that's more than enough for a group of people to live on. But this is for one individual, while the people who are working in those manufacturing or those fast food restaurants or in the service industry, convenience stores, sales, whatever it might be, is making somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000 a year. Inflation, the cost of fuel, the cost of other commodities such as groceries, clothing, you know, just little things that you need to support your family, yourself, eats up all of that $20,000 or that $15,000 that you might make a year. The majority of people who's working in these fields have a second job or a side hustle of some sort to supplement their income. Now, the corporations, McDonald's, Walgreens, or Walmart, all of these different places receive some form of government subsidy. And whether it be in the form of their employees receiving food stamps, Medicaid or Medicare or whatever it is that they may be receiving from the government, is a subsidy to that corporation. That's an expense that that corporation don't have to pay. One of the things that the House of Representatives and our Congress should be taking up is getting rid of any subsidies that are given to oil companies, corporations, or any big business. You know, let them operate like the small businesses operate, on their own capital. You know, they subsidize all these big corporations while mom and pop is down here having to struggle to make ends meet by paying their bills, paying their employers a decent wage. And the corporations get all of these government benefits, such as tax breaks, money that they can get easy access to, low interest money that they get easy access to expand and not really provide new jobs for anyone. You know, this argument about the minimum wage, keeping the minimum wage down, is a farce on the part of the Republican Party. You know, and then they talk about, oh, the government shouldn't be involved in any of that, the federal government shouldn't be involved in that. You know, it's funny how people who work for the federal government always got this opinion that, you know, the federal government is useless. Look at Rand Paul. He don't think the federal government should be even existing in anything, but he works and draws a check from the federal government. You know, these are people who